Joe. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are talking about Veterans Day, obviously, and why it's important. And my grandpa's coming over later, and we're going to interview him, talk about his experience in the Army. I figured we could talk about, some of our other family members and, uh, their experience and just why it's important for young people specifically, like our age, to remember Veterans Day because recently I've been seeing videos of people who are like, "Oh, we hate veterans in the military so bad and all this stuff." And it's like, well, not really, because the reason you can say that is because they did what they did, you know what I mean? So, anyways, that's just why I wanted to do this episode. So, but before we can get into any of that stuff, we have to explain what Veterans Day is and a little bit about the history because not everybody knows, but originally it was called Armistice Day because of that was the day that World War I ended.
Yes. Woodrow Wilson actually was the one that named it Armistice Day. Um, yeah, so it was at the end of World War One, and then they renamed it Veterans Day at the end of World War Two and the Vietnamese War, and that was I think it was President Eisenhower.
They actually, what's interesting is they signed it at like 5 a.m. in the morning on a train on November 11th, and then it went into effect at 11 a.m. that morning that they signed it. But the reason they did that is so that it would be easy to remember because it was the 11th month and the 11th day at the 11th hour, so that people could. So that it probably made it easier for them to be able to tell everybody, hey, here's when you're stopping the shooting. And then, you know what I mean? Instead of like all these numbers, it just made it easy. And then it's also easy to remember for us because, it's 11, 11, 11, basically. So uh, it was just an interesting sort of foresight. One story that I looked up that I found right before we did this actually um, was the last American to be killed in World War I died at 10:59 a.m. Yeah, and what had happened was he, I forget what he did, but he did something stupid and got demoted from a sergeant to a private. So he was kind of mad about it. So before the war ended, he wanted to prove himself to his fellow soldiers or whatever. So on the day that the armistice went into effect, he starts charging this German roadblock with two machine guns, and the Germans are trying to wave him off, like, go back, go away. We don't want to shoot you, we're about to be done here. Because, by then, but he's like, no. And so he's shooting at him and charging him with their bayonet. So right before he's right on top of him, they're like, well, I guess we have to shoot him. So they shot him. And he died at 10:59. So it's just like, wow. Anyways, totally random story, but just kind of interesting to learn about, the last American who died before the armistice went into effect. But anyways, that is the origin of Veterans Day. And at first it was called Armistice Day because that's when the Armistice Day was signed. But then turned into Veterans Day. And the reason is because the goal is to remember those who have served in our military and have died and been wounded and, are currently serving so that we can be free. And I just think that's important for us to remember.
Yeah, and it's easy to get confused with Memorial Day. Um,
Yeah.
Memorial Day and Veterans Day are separate holidays. Memorial Day is more of honoring those that have died in the past, and it's more of a recognition of that. And then um, Veterans Day is more of ones that are living, even though um, it does kind of carry into those that have died as well. But it's more emphasized on the ones that are alive and have served or are serving now. Um, so that's the difference
Yeah.
between Veterans Day and Memorial Day.
Yep. What was I going to say? Oh, I was just thinking, because I was been thinking about young people and just America in general and the familiarity with, either of these holidays, specifically Veterans Day in this case. But, like, I don't know about anybody else, but I didn't even know Veterans Day was coming up to Wednesday. You know what I mean? So I I think that Veterans Day is one of those days that needs to be have more emphasis on it, I guess, because the fact is the reason we can, do this podcast and you can say the things you say, whether you agree or disagree with something, is because of the people who are serving and have served in our military, the people who are willing to die so that you can say stuff.
Part of that is we've never really had, our generation's never really had to go to war or fight in anything. They've always been given everything and they take everything for granted. And I think that's one reason why nobody remembers Veterans Day or Memorial Day, because they've never been put through anything like that. They don't have anybody that's close to them that's gone through that. And I just think that's one reason why. Another reason why is because they listen to everybody else telling them, hey, this is what we do, come follow us. And they don't even know why they're doing it.
Today, with the whole Hamas and Israel and those sorts of things, the people who, you know, okay, so the people who are on college campuses and even certain people in Congress who support Hamas blows my mind because they're like, oh, Israel's so bad and they just need peace and a ceasefire and all this stuff. And they were just doing what they thought was right and all this stuff. It's like, well, I mean, you think Israel's bad, but Hamas was the one who attacked civilians purposefully, without warning. Whereas Israel's like, they did you read there's for like 4 hours a day, they open a escape corridor so that the civilians can actually come out. Whereas Hamas has actually been confiscating keys and putting up roadblocks so the civilians can't escape out of the harm's way. And that just paints the picture. And look, the fact of the matter is, in war, people are going to die, whether they're civilians or soldiers, whatever, race they are, it's just going to happen. War's ugly. War's terrible. I mean, obviously we haven't had to experience it, but the truth is the truth that it's not pretty and whatever happens, bad things are going to happen, and, Israel, obviously in this case, tries to minimize as many civilian casualties as possible. In our wars in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, we've tried to do that as well. I think that's one reason, a lot of reason why we've brought in a lot of drones and stuff is so that we can actually keep our guys out of the way and then specifically target who actually needs to be eliminated, so to speak, and try to work around, their human shields. But, um, you know, I just feel like people in our generation, at least the loud ones, I think there's probably more that agree with us than we realize, but the loud ones don't realize the reality of war. Like, if you're going to fight a war and actually win, then you're going to have to, people are going to die. I mean, that's just the way it is. And I mean, what was I going to say? I forgot what it was. But, anyways, yeah. No, I was going to say, I remember now. I was going to say that, I read this quote somewhere. It's probably Facebook or something, and I don't know who said it, but they said that the only way war is justifiable is if you win, essentially, which is kind of true because, I mean, if you look at it from another standpoint, I mean, otherwise you just killed a bunch of people for no reason. You know what I mean? So it's this country has stopped fighting wars to win. I feel like that started in Korea, and you could see it a lot in Vietnam, and it went downhill from there pretty much.
They have this mentality of making sure that everyone's equal. And it's like, oh, we don't really want anybody to win. We just want everyone to live in peace, and everyone wants to be equal. So we're going to do the bare minimum to help each side out, and then basically the war lasts forever.
that drives me nuts is like, well, number one, the UN supports Hamas, which is crazy, but um, they're not very good at fighting wars, and normally it's Americans who get shot.
Yeah. And, well, I knew this was during Trump's administration, but if you looked at all the numbers, we were the ones that basically kept the UN running. We gave the most money, we gave the most troops, we did the most in the UN, and we're the ones that get treated like garbage the most. It's like, screw it. Like, why are we even in the UN? And the other countries were doing the bare minimum, if that. So I know that was a big deal back when Trump was in office. I think he cut the budget actually how much we were given to UN, but Biden probably
I
screwed
was
that
gonna
up too.
say Biden probably loves the UN. He probably works well. Anyways, yeah, he probably works for the WEF and the UN. I mean, because that's another thing recently is like we've switched from a pro American mentality to a pro global mentality, which, I mean, I can kind of see where they're coming from, but at the same time, it's like, all right, it's you live in America, okay, and we can't help everybody else.
Right. Well, I think we should focus on America, get ourselves and our act together, and then when we finally get, everything settled here, then we can worry about everyone else's problems. But until we get ourselves squared away, there's no reason to go mess around in other people's affairs.
Yeah, yeah, because that's just gonna mess
Unless
everything
it's a
up.
direct threat to America.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's even biblical. It's like, dude, stay stay in your own house,
Mm-hmm.
don't mess around or else you're going to find out, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what I was gonna say? I don't know if this is kind of random and doesn't have anything to do with anything, but what was interesting to me just recently in the news is um I can't remember if they got it passed or not, but Mike Johnson tried to take money from the IRS to send to Israel instead of just creating new money, which I liked because the IRS doesn't need more money. You know what's interesting? I mean, this is totally off topic, so I'll probably cut this out. But um, the fewer taxes you have and the more freedom you have, the more revenue you actually bring in. And I know that's mind blowing, but if people are free to actually make money, then you're gonna make more money. So I don't know how they haven't figured that out yet, but you know. Anyways, so we're talking about Veterans Day, and so I was just curious, like, obviously I know there's a lot of people in my family who've been in the military, but I haven't heard a lot about yours. So I was just curious if you had any stories or anything.
I've got a few people that I know of, and a few family members as well. But there's my cousin, um, Mark. I think it was I think it was the Marines. I'm not sure which one it was, but he was in there for a while, and then um, yeah. Um, well, I actually just saw one of my friends. Um, he had a brother that served in the army, and he posted about it on his Instagram thing. But he had a brother, and I don't know which war it was, but he got killed, and he was just saying that he wished he would have picked up his last phone call, but he said he did leave a message for him. He's like, "Hey, um, I love you," basically, and hope everything's going well, and
Yeah.
so stuff like that it touches me.
Mm-hmm.
It has a soft spot in my heart. I I, really enjoy hearing stories about, people that have served and, their memories and all that stuff. And it takes a lot of courage to go and do that for your country. And, you know, which actually, I almost went and joined the Marines, actually. I was thinking about it
I could see
seriously
that.
for a while. And then, and then I guess I just didn't. And this is where God has me. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, it's close to my heart. It's something that I would have wanted to do, but um, you know, and it just, I don't know. It's, every time I see, someone in uniform or see someone that has a retired, hat or whatever, I normally try to make it, one of my goals is to go thank them for their service and be thankful for it. And I think that's something that we are losing here in America. We are no longer thankful for the sacrifices that these people have made.
Yeah.
And which, like I said earlier, it's like, and I think that's because we haven't gone through that or anything like that. And it's not real to us anymore. Everyone they're caught up on their phones and they're caught up on everything else besides reality and history and things that have actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And they just take everything for granted. And, with me being a missionary kid living in Africa, every time we came on furlough, we'd come back for a year and stay, and then we'd go leave for Africa for 3 years. So every time we would come back for a year, I always enjoyed coming back because there's freedom and there's choices and there's things that we can do as Americans, and it just gives you a whole different perspective when you live in a third world country that is trashy and corrupt and all this garbage that's going on. You come to the realization that you appreciate the freedom that you have, and you appreciate the things that you other people don't have. For instance, Walmart. In Africa, we didn't have Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have anything close to Walmart. Like, I remember I was maybe like 12 or 13. I don't remember how old. But we came back one year, and I remember walking into Walmart, and all of the options was ridiculous. Like, it's like, holy cow. Like, normally in Africa, it's just one thing, and you're lucky if you get that.
Mm-hmm.
But in Walmart, you walk in, and there's like aisles full of options. Like, what in the world? What? Like,
Yeah.
why do we need so many options? But
Mm-hmm.
it's like, hey, we live in America. We can do what we want. We have all these options,
Mm-hmm.
And it's just mind blowing. It's like, wow, we really do live in a great country, and it's because people have been willing to die and fight for, our freedom
Yeah.
and what they believe is right, and we have lost that in America.
Yeah, we have. And like you said, it's because we haven't had to do it. That which also brings a question to my mind then is like, if it came down to it, would we be willing as a nation to do it? Like would be
I think there will be the ones like you and me, the ones that are conservative, the ones that love America. I think we will be the ones that will go and serve. And, like-minded people like us would be willing to do that. But you have the LGBTQ plus people that won't do anything. I actually saw, this is actually really interesting. I saw a ad for, I think it was the army or military of some sort, but basically it was just a bunch of white dudes, straight white dudes, and they were on a plane or something, and they were jumping out, but I looked down in the comment section, and they're like, "Man, where's all the diversity, and where's all the black people and the women and all this trash?" It's like, dude, why does it have to be diverse? Why can't we just be normal white people? Why do you have to shove an agenda down every stinking buddy's throat
mm-hmm.
and always push some kind of garbage? Like, just let us be normal.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with being white and straight? Absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's like, oh, we have to have black people in there, and we have to have Asians, and we have to have a queer person, and all these. Like, it's disgusting. Why? We are America. why do we have to have all this trash?
Yeah.
Um, but I was also saying, or I also read one comment. It's like, man, it's getting serious when they bring out the straight white guys. I'm like, because we're the only ones that are going to get stuff done. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Mhm.
Like all these other guys are following some wacko and like protesting about something they don't even know about.
Well, I mean,
Go get a life, dude. Go do some research. Go learn some history.
yeah. Not, I mean, okay, I gotta be honest. I think you're talking about like straight white male army or whatever, or military. And there's plenty of, there's probably more than I would like to know that are white and straight and whatever who are out protesting with all the rest of the people. You know what I mean? And, and at the same time, it's not that all black people are, you know, BLM activists either.
No, yeah. No, I'm not saying that
But
at all.
I also think, like what you're saying though, yeah, is that number one, from a creator standpoint, it's their video. They can do what they want and they can have who they want in it. You know what I mean? It's not like it matters. And the fact is, this is America. So, there are multiple races, or not even races because there's no races, it's ethnicities. But at any rate, I think that, and most of us are white just because of the way we were settled. That's just life. But one way or the other, it doesn't matter. We're all Americans still, you know, whether you're black or you're white or you're Hispanic or South American or whatever. If you're a citizen of this country, you're an American, not, you're not. Okay, so I think one of the problems talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the military. Well, there's several problems, but one of them is it doesn't matter what you look like. Okay, it just matters that you're an American because that's what you are, and it's not your race. And I think in America we've tried to turn ourselves more into the salad bowl instead of the melting pot. So you have your, oh, if you're Mexican American, then you have to act like a Mexican American, and if you're Black American, then you have to act that way too. And it's like, that's not how it works because we're all Americans. So maybe we should all act like Americans and we'd all get along better. And so in the military, their recruitment numbers have dropped, I think, because they've been trying to push stuff in the diversity, equity, inclusion front, being LGBTQ in the military and having women and those sorts of things. And it's hurt them a lot. And I think as Americans, we need to remember that it's not about your inclusion numbers. It's about your, you know, what you're willing to do, I guess. The fact is that you're there and you're serving, whether you're white or you're black or you're a woman or a man. So that's what matters. I was just going to say, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but that, you were talking about people that and this guy's brother who passed away and those sorts of things. And it just made me think of my family because I have an interesting dynamic because my dad's side, um, my grandpa and all his brothers at one point or another served in the military. A couple of my uncles have served in the military. They've all. It's a very. It's not like you must be in the army to do stuff, sort of a thing, but it's an honor to do it. Whereas on my mom's side, her parents and her grandparents and her great grandparents for years and years and years and years were all Mennonite who are non-resistance. So when during the Vietnam War, my grandpa on my mom's side, instead of getting drafted, went and did alternative service, helping a middle of nowhere town in Mexico farm. So I have a weird sort of mix in my family of both sides, both the very pro military, proud to serve in the army, those sorts of things, as well as the non resistance, just let everybody love kind of thing almost. But anyways, so that's just sort of a random thing, but it's just sort of a unique perspective that I've been able to see, kind of juxtaposing the two sides to each other and just a unique American dynamic. And at the same time, like we've been talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, because they're all Americans, we can all get along. Mind blown.